Why were you bullied? Story 1. I rejected the popular guy. He fabricated a story that made it look as if I had led him on. I didn't. I was the introverted weirdo geek girl. He was the golden boy. Everyone believed him. I was actively bullied by girls and guys alike, called a whore to my face, etc. Now, I avoid men entirely. I only befriend gay men. At work, I purposely look like a mess. In public, I walk aggressively as to repel men. I never want to be in that situation again. Story 2. Because my mother had a Turkish Muslim heritage in a country predominantly Christian. The country is Serbia. Even now, after all those years, Serbs cannot hide the hate against other religions or ethnicity. It's sickness. Story 3. One time, one of my closest friends decided to start treating me like shit for absolutely no reason. He refused to speak to me, and only insulted me for a solid month straight, apparently as some sort of sick social experiment. As he returned to normal after that, my psyche and our friendship never really repaired after that, and I think about it almost weekly. This was over 15 years ago. Story 4. I was the chubby kid. I was a crybaby, which didn't really stop until high school, and I didn't have everything the other kids had. I kind of got genetically fucked to be chubby, as even though I was outside every single day for 8-10 hours a day playing basketball, baseball, or whatever we wanted to play with my friends on my street, I just never lost weight and would stay chubby. I was also a big-ass crybaby. I would cry over every insult, and it wasn't until I broke my arm that I stopped, and eventually I stopped caring in high school about what people said. I was pretty self-conscious about this once I got to middle school, and even some of the teachers made fun of me for this. This got discovered day 1 of going to a new school. I was the new kid, and I sat down, said, "Hi, my name is __," and immediately this kid said, "Shut up, loser." And that kind of started everything. I would come home crying pretty much every day in elementary school. I was also pretty late to new technology. Until I was 12, we had some stuff like a DS and Wii, but after my mom and dad got divorced, we no longer had money for stuff. We went from middle class to living in an old crack house, eating rice and beans, waiting for the next paycheck. So going into 6th grade being the only one without a phone, while everyone was talking about the new huge game called Clash of Clans, really didn't help. Eventually, I got a cheap $20 smartphone in middle school, and I loved that thing. And then I was bullied for not having the newest iPhone. I think it was like the iPhone 3 or something. My senior year was really when I got to the point where I was no longer bullied for the most part. At that point, I had fully stopped caring. And even though I was a bit weird, I just no longer gave a shit and focused on what I liked doing instead. Story 5. I was poor. My mother was a weekend warrior alcoholic and she had abusive boyfriends. My brother and sister were in foster homes, so I was alone. I was overweight and bullied a lot for that. I had rocks thrown at me, called every name imaginable, and quite literally locked in a closet. My mother always chose her boyfriends over me. I saw things no child should see, and I sought comfort in food because of it. I was essayed more than once, and it was then I realized it didn't matter if I were fat or skinny. If someone who outweighed me wanted to do something to me, they would. The friends I did have were crappy friends who talked about me and bullied me a lot. I was probably a crappy friend too, though. I definitely bullied them too. There's a whole laundry list of things. Story 6. I somehow wasn't, or if I was, it was never for very long, or out of a place of true malice. I had a good brother who used his popularity to make people ignore me the way I wanted to be ignored. After he graduated, it was my friend Cooper who took that role, but sort of on accident, 'cause people would see me with him and just automatically assume I'm all right. Edit. Also, one detail I neglected was that I went to a very small school. My graduating class was 24. Story 7. I was the only Arab kid in the entire school. Literally the only one. There was nobody else. There was one girl who went to our school for like a week, but some asshole came up behind her and pulled her hijab off. She switched schools after that, on top of me being the only Arab in a rural school, but I was also obviously flamboyant. Story 8. I was bullied once in elementary school, and it was from this smart Asian girl, not racist. She was genuinely that one smart girl who made it obvious. I remember doing some game in class where the teacher had some multiplication card, and the people of 2 teams had to solve it for a point. I remember crying because I was always up against her, and she would answer at 0.2 seconds after seeing it. She made me feel so stupid. I'm so glad she moved the year after. Story 9. The right question. Why they keep bullying. It's them the problem here. Understanding their mentality is the key to whole thing. And I believe the answer is simple. And as bullying is twisted form of natural human fear toward what is different and who is different, this makes that person unknown factor in their life, much like remembering death and its unknown feeling when happened. Therefore it triggered that fear, If the person did not master managing their own emotions, fear become uncontrollable and call out twisted forms of actions of fight, but also can call out twisted forms of flight. So ya being bully and coward are actually came from same core feeling, or how I believe. This is why calling a bully coward or "are you afraid?" upset them greatly. Hope this helps. Story 10. I lived out in the country and grew up in a trailer. In middle school, I had my first experience being around kids whose parents were legit loaded. Some of them were cool, and some of them were pure cocksuckers who treated me like shit for being poor, even though looking back on it I really wasn't. Story 11. I've asked myself this question for years now. I think I just always gave everyone a vibe that said, "I'm better than you," and that just pushed to just fuck with me, even though I quite literally was doing nothing wrong. Back then, it just got so bad to the point where I wanted to do something, but I always just carried on like it was nothing. Story 12. I wanted to join preschool earlier by 1 year. Something technically allowed, but not popular. And after I was denied, my parents and grandparents organized some homeschooling. Thus, I entered preschool already knowing how to read, write, do basic math, and speak basic English, second language here. And other kids hated me for it with burning passion. I was bullied relentlessly. Even teachers joined, and there was an informal understanding between teachers and kids. As long as they rat me out when I forget homework, their lack of homework would not be penalized. My mother's solution was to change my elementary school after 4 years of bullying. Old school was in the village, new one in the town, so due to education level of teachers difference, I was behind. There I was bullied for being outsider, new kid, and behind. I eventually overcame it and someone else became butt monkey. In middle school, both groups met again, kids from village and kids from town, so I was bullied because I was bullied previously. In high school, I had trouble holding a conversation with any person that had less than 3 years age difference with me. Older people were cool, kids were cool. People my age were fucking aliens. I could not understand one bit. I avoided social interactions, treated high school like work where I just do what I'm supposed to and leave ASAP. Avoided any bullying this way and got into good university. Recently, I got my revenge on the whole village and feel good about it. Story 13, different perspective, but I was the bully. In elementary, 8th and 9th grade, I made fun of some kids. Not all the time, but I know I called gay kids the F slur and used to push people around and make them do things for me. It was all because of my own insecurities. I was overweight and closeted. I came out in 10th grade and lost a bunch of weight. Both of those events, especially coming out, turned my world around. I reached out to all the kids I bully on Facebook or in person and apologized for what I did and explained why I did it. This is why I truly believe that bullies are just projecting. Now, being an adult, obviously I despise bullying with a passion and would defend anyone who's being bullied. Story 14. I was different and was bullied about it. The more different I was, the more bullied I got. I refused to hate with the group and was constantly bullied for it. Refused to be part of clans and cliques and was a loner and outsider. Couldn't like anything or it would be destroyed to laughter and applause. Couldn't fight back because of the clannishness meant I alone would be fighting groups bound by blood and incest. Fucking coward saying I was weak for not fighting 3 against 1. I had to move carefully. I don't regret the vicious attacks I made with no other choice. In fact, I should have been more ruthless sometimes. That kind of thing bought me a week or 2 of breathing time, but never stopped the BS permanently. Story 15. I was considered too talkative and always told to be quiet. When I did, the adults always said that I was very mature for my age. I started talking less and less each day, now because I only ever talk when I have to. I was flat out told that I'm the quiet kid by multiple people, teachers, strangers, everyone. It hurts, but I won't let them know that simply because I know they don't mean TK be hurtful. Story 16. I was a sensitive kid and would cry when people made fun of me, which would make people do it more. After I tried to kill myself in year 7, my parents moved me to a new school after complaining for 5 years. Unfortunately, people at the new school heard I was a loser with no friends and everyone picked on, which was announced to me in the middle of class on the first day, so things didn't get much better. Story 17. My name, last name, the fact I'm from the North, NJ, Catholic, lapsed now, had an accent. Take your pick. My clothes, my glasses, for just breathing. Coming to TN in '89 was rough. At first I was an oddity, an interesting one, that soon faded and the picking on started and lasted on into high school. Things changed slightly, but the base stuff stayed. Clothing choices. We were poor and hand-me-downs were a strong thing. Anything anyone could think of. It was sheer misery. There were points of happiness, I had a small circle of friends that lightened things a bit, but for the most part, I was miserable. Story 18. I walked with a limp and had seizures. I needed walking aids throughout school. I went from a cane to crutches to a wheelchair. It turns out that I was horrifically abused when I was an infant. My parents hid what happened because they didn't want to go to jail. The result of them hiding the truth was my disabilities were getting worse because doctors did not know how to treat me. I would have trash thrown at me at school, and horrific things said to me when I would try to hobble around. I'm in my 50s now and still feeling embarrassed when I have to use a cane, like those kids are still yelling at me how horrible I am because I can't walk right. Story 19. I was bullied in elementary school because I was overweight, tall, had buck teeth, and wore Pokemon shirts. In middle school, the tradition carried on. I got braces in 8th grade, but my confidence was lowering. I tried to be funny to get attention. In high school, I became a little quiet. Freshman, sophomore year, I wore only sweatshirts even though it was hot out. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup, and my mom divorced my dad the day before I started freshman year. I didn't know how to be a girl. Junior year, I was depressed. Started wearing all black. I was called emo, and the kids were even more brutal. One day, I broke down crying in gym class. They realized they went too far. Senior year, I gained confidence and found a great group of solid friends. Wasn't bullied anymore. Until adulthood, where everyone treats their workplace like high school all over again. But I've realized now that I am who I am and I own it. Some people hate authenticity. Story 20. I was fat and socially stunted. Grandma was a bit of a feeder, and I think it's how she showed affection. She'd feed me up when I hung around the house because I was too little to work some jobs. When I got bigger, I was still chubby. Probably not so much by modern standards, but at the time, I was chunky compared to my classmates when I was eventually old enough to go to school. She used to really feed us up by then. It was about 5 hours between breakfast and school starting, so I guess she didn't want us getting hungry. I wasn't socialized much in my first 5 years either, so I couldn't relate to other kids. Cows, potatoes, and machinery were pretty much the only things I would talk about. Story 21. I wasn't bullied. I wasn't even targeted. Every single student at the schools I went to were just such shitheads that they basically bullied everyone they interacted with, including their friends, teachers, and parents. 40% of my current school, HS, has a failing grade in at least one class, and I have no idea how the other 59% are scraping by. Only 1% of the students or less are actual decent humans that somehow escaped whatever radiation poisoning turned the rest of the kids into brain-dead, insufferable dickwads. Anyways, the teachers and other staff are really nice, and they make it almost bearable to drag myself out of bed in the morning 5 days a week. I really hope people like this grow up so I don't have to share a plane of existence with them for the rest of my life. Story 22. I was very pretty innocent and nice. Captain of the cheer squad, had a good family on paper, honor roll, but behind closed doors, I didn't have the best relationship with my family, mostly due to a narcissistic, controlling, angry father growing up. I wasn't super confident as a result of this, and the most popular girls were very jealous of the boys liking me. People would take pictures of me in the hallway, making fun of my makeup and whatnot. Some of the anonymous posts would get 200 upvotes. I tried to act like I didn't see it / it didn't affect me. It was really tough. I ended up moving to NYC and getting a job on Wall Street and building out a cool, as a bit of an F my haters, I'm gonna keep winning. I recently left that industry last spring as I had a bit of an awakening and realized I've spent the first quarter of my life trying to prove myself to others. I'm just grateful that I'm waking up now and working on making decisions for myself and who I really am. I just made some new friends tonight in a really special, by chance, wholesome chain of events. I think I'm turning a new chapter in life. Story 23. I have no idea, but a handful of girls wanted to kick my ass in high school. They never gave me a good reason why. One of the girls I used to be friends with, but we drifted apart when she moved away. I'm glad I never got into a fight with her one. It would have made me sad to fight her too. I am a sucky fighter 3. She was a scary fighter. Her and another girl, who was also a formed friend, got into she almost killed the girl. The cops got called. She got expelled. Apparently, she had grabbed the girl's hair, wrapped it around her arm, and started smashing her face into the wall, then the ground, before she started just kicking her. Super sad she was at a party and supposedly killed herself. Many people think she was actually murdered, but the cops didn't look further into it, just seemed it a suicide. Story 24. I was actually awesome at pretty much everything in grade school. Sports, grades, being sociable, etc. But the thing was, I lived in an ultra-wealthy area and I wasn't wealthy, and two, I didn't just go along with what the rich kid popularity contest wanted. I refused to pick on the other kids, and I'd openly challenge the popular rich kids. Stuff like getting higher grades, doing better in PE, or just straight up standing between them and some other kid they'd bully. Basically, I got picked on because I was a sore thumb sticking out. That all said, I wasn't some kind of saint. I was an absolute asshole to the other assholes. I vividly remember one time at a parent-teacher night one of the popular kids' parents were arguing in the other room about who should take their kid home because they were both busy. It was loud and definitely embarrassing in the moment. A few weeks later, this same rich kid was ganging up with some of his friends on one of the few black students in the school and said something to the effect of, "Your parents don't love you." I stepped in and loudly said, "Yeah, well, her parents loved her enough to make her lunch. Yours hate you so much they can't even get rid of you to each other." I got detention for it. Rightfully so. And it wasn't the first time. I'd be absolutely brutal at times, had no filter and absolutely no tolerance for watching others get shit on. Sasha, if by any chance you're reading this, hope you forgive me for making a scene there. My B. Story 25. Because I was hyperactive and hyperfixated on my often slightly cringy interests, and it was the 90s, so nobody knew what to do with that. Because I was bi and in love with my male friends, and I didn't know what to do with that because I grew up in a fundy bubble. Because I was also a stupid, opinionated little snot who pissed people off, usually unintentionally. Story 26. As a youngin', I was bullied for having a learning disability in elementary school. It got worse when I found out I had to wear glasses, so I ended up getting bullied more. Then I moved from my hometown to a different but much smaller town because my parents gotten divorced, and it hurted for everyone in the family. On my first day at my new school, the kid who was showing me for some reason threw me against a locker. For the next few years, my new bullies bullied me. I was from a bigger town. They knew Mexicans lived there, so I was referred to as a Hispanic. If you didn't figure it out already, my new school was really dominated by white redneck people, so you know it's pretty conservative there. It didn't really help that my mom's side was conservative as well. I somehow ended up winning prom king at that school too. Some people were pissed about it. They stopped the prom king queen tradition after I won it. They haven't done the tradition in about 7 years. Damn, I'm glad to be an adult. I try to not think about my childhood. Story 27. I was somewhat short, nice, quiet, and had troubles making friends because of being a smartass and having some troubles with self-esteem. Easy target. Even after I began training judo and kicked my bullies' asses multiple times, including suplexing one of them in 4th grade. Not proud, but I felt damn fucking good in the moment. They kept going for some reason, until I began ignoring them, and they stopped by 7th grade. Then kids started just thinking I'm intimidating. Not pile of muscle kind of intimidating, but if I mess with this guy, he will skin me alive. Intimidating. Story 28. Bullying will always happen. Whether you're a kid or an adult, it takes a lot of courage to keep being yourself authentically in a world of liars and thieves, plus everything in between. Always ignore the haters, just don't become one yourself. I still struggle with finding positive role models, besides my mother who just did the best she could with her situation. Both men and women can be role models for whatever you're going through, as well as fictional characters in various media. It's all about perspective, and I'm proud of all of us who choose to be better with ourselves, even when it seems like all is lost. I have a mental image of my younger self most of the time to keep me out of trouble and to keep moving forward. It is pretty silly, and you know what? That's fine with me anyway. Thank you for reading, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Story 29. How long you got? My mom told me as an adult that she chose to only speak English with me at home, instead of either of my parents' first languages, not English, because she didn't want kids singling me out or bullying me for being different. Oh, Mom, they found plenty of other reasons to bully me and single me out. My mom dressed me the way she liked, an immigrant with a different sense of style than my white American classmates, and I was endlessly made fun of for my clothes not matching. Also for using words my classmates found too complicated. I was one of the smarter kids in most of my classes through the years. Some kids didn't like that, and they really didn't like when I told them to stop using me as on-demand spell check. There was a little girl in my daycare who threw solid wooden blocks at my head. Still to this day, don't know why, but I remember how much it hurt. A girl in my 1st grade class would follow me around at recess and push me to the ground, push me off the swings, call me names, no idea why. School did nothing. I celebrated on the inside when she moved away in the middle of the school year. My brother's friend's mom would watch us after school until my mom could come get us. My brother's friend would put his hand around my throat, squeeze, and get right in my face and tell me I wasn't playing right if I did something he didn't like. He would only do it when my brother wasn't looking. Story 30. Sixth grade, I developed a keen interest in punk and metal and changed my complete looks. Long hair, band shirts, studded belt, etc. That was in the early 00s when all the cool kids listened to hip-hop, so naturally they started to bully me. In retrospect, it was great luck that right in the middle of this happening, I got my first growth spurt and suddenly towered 20 centimeters over my classmates. I got into a few fights and nobody tried bullying me again for many years. Also, a few years later, a small portion of my classmates also started to listen to alternative music and dress accordingly, which created a sort of balance. Story 31. Being one of 4 black kids in the school, so I stood out and I wasn't the cool black kids, they said, because I talked white. I kinda nerdy into Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Pokemon, Legos, etc. IDK, why they decided liking that stuff wasn't cool. This was 2 and like 8th grade. What 10, 15 YO didn't like that stuff. But I was too nice to stand up for myself, but they kinda stopped when I joined the basketball team. I was carrying that school team on my back. Then I moved to a different district for the last year of middle school, and things got way better. Met some real lifelong friends.